Having your bike stolen is something that every cyclist is afraid of. But sadly, it's also a really very real possibility. In London alone, 20,000 bikes are reported stolen every year. Realistically, that's only a fragment of what's actually stolen, and the British Crime Survey believes that about 70,000 bikes are stolen every year. 50% of cyclists, they also believe, have experienced bike theft in one form or another. Now, it's important to remember that thieves will target almost any bike, whether it's a fancy carbon racing bike or a cheap aluminium runaround. I interviewed a bike thief, a reformed bike thief, a few years ago, and he said that he often stole a really cheap bike to start off his day, simply to get to more expensive bikes. So it doesn't matter if you've got something that costs 50 quid off eBay or 5 grand from a bike shop, it's all something that will be targeted by thieves. About a third of bikes are stolen out in the wild, in urban settings, and about a third are stolen from the home. Today we're going to be talking about the ways to secure your bikes out in the wild, in town. Another day we'll do a video on how to secure it at home. To keep a bike safe, the first thing you're going to have to do is get a decent lock. Here we've got all the basic lock types. You've got a chain lock, D-locks, a cable lock, a folding lock. And these are the ways that you're going to secure your bike. All these locks are going to have a security rating, and in the UK we measure everything on sold secure, and this varies from bronze to gold. 2 of these locks are gold rated, and we're going to start off by talking about this Bordeaux X Plus Granite 6500 lock, which is the most secure we have here. Now, this is innately very different to the rest of the locks we have here, and that's because it's foldable, which means that when it's stowed on the bike, it can either be mounted at the bottle cage point or attached to a tube, and it's actually pretty small and easy to put in a bag. But when you fold it out, it has a pretty big locking area, bigger than any D-locks we have here. What makes this really tough is it's made of plates of hardened steel that are wide and really tough to get a bolt crop around, and equally, by its innate nature, it's going to be tough to twist open because it's just movable. So, whether someone's driving a scaffolding pole in or a crowbar to twist it, that's going to be really hard. And even between these plates, we have the bolts themselves are reinforced with a metal O-ring, and between them we have a ring as well to mean that you can't wedge something in there and pry it open. So realistically, the only way someone's going to get through this is with an angle grinder, and it's going to take a while because this is really thick steel. This is not a cheap lock, it's £139.99. But that's not too bad considering that you're protecting a £1,000 or £2,000 road bike potentially, and this is going to be a big deterrent to thieves. And much as this is a really secure locking system, the D-lock or U-lock is the more common locking mechanism we see across the range with bikes. That's for numerous reasons. It's innately more kind of very, very secure, it's hard to attack, and it's just kind of easy to use. You put a key into the locking mechanism, remove the U-lock shackle, and then put it through your bike and through wheels and what have you. Both these locks are a similar sort of weight. This one's a little bit lighter as a result of being a bit smaller, but at the same time probably isn't as easy to mount to your bike. Now further down the range we have Abus 402 D-lock. This is only £29.99, so it's a bit more affordable. Also it's just palpably lighter. This is not going to be as secure against bolt croppers and that sort of thing. It's got thinner metal shackle here, and the locking mechanism is just a bit smaller. But at the same time, this is a really decent lock to secure your bike for maybe a shorter period of time or a less expensive bike, and it just gets the job done. In a similar vein, the Abus Bordeaux Light is going to be like a nice, quick solution to leaving your bike for a shorter period of time, but it's not going to offer the same security as these sold secure gold locks. Now, the more conventional locking mechanism that most people are going to be used to, and it's been around for decades and decades, is the chain lock. Now, while a chain lock may look really burly and tough, a lot of the time they are slightly more vulnerable than you might think. That's probably because each link and each bit of the padlock itself is going to be vulnerable to attack. So if an angle grinder can work through a single link, or someone can drive something through a link and twist it so it pries open, the lock's going to be broken and the bike can be taken away. The final kind of lock we will come across is like a really portable lock, something like a cable lock. You can get these in even smaller cables with a padlock or something like that. Generally speaking, this should only really be used with a much more secure lock, like the 420 or the Bordeaux X Plus, because these are not super secure. They'll be really easy to get through with bolt croppers or maybe even something smaller, So this is not like a good option for securing an expensive bike by itself, but nonetheless it's really good for extending to protect a saddle or a front wheel or anything like that. So despite all the benefits, these many different lock types, the most important thing with locking a bike is always going to be how you actually lock the bike up and where you lock it. And it may seem obvious, but there's a lot of really easy, simple mistakes that people make, and we're going to show you exactly how to lock a bike up in the best way that makes it hardest to steal. So here we are at our bike locking spot, which is pretty good on the whole, but could be better. So it's a fairly busy spot. It's pretty conspicuous. Probably a thief wouldn't be able to make a massive attempt to steal a bike here, the amount of people coming by. But it's not that kind of well supervised. There isn't any CCTV, there aren't cafes overlooking it. That would make it a slightly more desirable spot, which would make it really difficult for a thief to be using an angle grinder or making a lot of noise and visibly kind of messing around with a bike. So anyway, we have many potential mounting spots here. We've got this set of railings, we've got this signpost here, and we've got an actual Sheffield bike stand. Now, in every case, you should do your best to use one of these bike stands rather than, say, a railing or a signpost. The reason being that this railing, while it might look solid, you could use a hammer to knock the railings actually out of their seating and then take the bike away. Similarly with a signpost, while it may look pretty solid, it's an immovable object. What often happens is that the actual signs themselves are lifted off the top of the post and the bike is lifted off and taken away. So the Sheffield bike stand is the best bet. It's an immovable object, it's designed to attach bikes to it, it has easy mounting points to the front and back wheel, and it's just very immovable. But there's a few little points you should pay attention to on the Sheffield bike stand as well. First things first, just give it a really good shake. Sometimes these might have been lifted out of the ground by a thief ahead of time, so that when a bike's locked to it, they can lift the whole thing out, even though on the surface of it, it looks like it's solid. Occasionally, these are cut across here, and the whole thing can be pried apart and a bike taken out, or the lock taken out so the bike can be removed. This one seems pretty solid to us, so we're happy to use this as a locking point. Now, let's talk about the best way to actually lock a bike and some easy mistakes that people can make. The first thing I'm going to do is actually put this bike so that the stand is on the non-drive side of the bike. And that's just to give you a little bit of extra room so you can get to stand really close to the tubes and not have to worry about the chain or the derailleur getting in the way. So now we have that in pretty close space here. Now let's show you some easy locking mistakes and some good locking practice. First things first, I'll show you the very worst ways to lock a bike. I'll start with the second worst way to lock a bike, and that's just doing this. Now, while your bike is attached to this immovable object now, it really is incredibly insecure. Firstly, all the quick release components, the front and rear wheel, can easily be taken off, they're not secured at all. And secondly, the lock itself is in a pretty loose and vulnerable position. Chances are a thief could fit in a car jack or a crowbar or a bit of scaffolding pole and try and twist this lock open. And that's a big problem because it means that someone that doesn't even have very advanced equipment, a real opportunist, could take this bike if they can snap this lock. Now, as I say, that's the second worst way of locking a bike. The absolute worst way of locking a bike, and though it may seem stupid, it does happen, is to just secure the front wheel on its own. This bike is completely free to take now. All you have to do is undo this quick release and the frame and the rear wheel and everything else can be taken away. All you'll be left with is a front wheel, which obviously is sub-ideal. So now we've spoken about the wrong way to lock a bike, let's show you the best practice and the best way to lock a bike and keep it secure. So we'll start with the D-lock. As mentioned, just locking through the frame leaves the wheels a little bit vulnerable. So here, we're going to try and get it through the rear wheel and the frame and the stand as well. So now that's locked up, we still have one problem, which is that the front wheel is still vulnerable to be taken. It's got a quick release, so you can just undo that quick release and take the front wheel away. So that's why we're going to use an extender to secure the front wheel as well. And now we've got the D-lock and the extender lock all secured in place. Now, one problem with this is that this is still just a bronze sold secure rating D-lock. So ideally we'd use something like the Bordeaux X Granite, which is a sold secure gold and really, really hard to break through. So let's just go through how to use the foldable lock. The Bordeaux is a lot bigger, has a lot more locking space within it. So the benefit of this is we can get both the frame and the rear wheel in, but we could also take the front wheel off and fit it within the locking space. So now we've got all the key components and the frame effectively protected, save for one thing, and that's the saddle and the seat post that can be easily removed with an Allen key. So what we'll do now is just add the extender and feed that through the saddle rails themselves. Now if we take the Bordeaux lock off, what we can do now is just pop the ends of this onto there. So what we have in the hole here is really good protection against most ways of stealing a bike. That's kind of people with bolt cutters, people with a scaffold pole or any opportunist thieves, using anything they can, a hammer, whatever, it's going to be really tough to get through this. Now, a lot of thieves do use portable angle grinders, which has really changed the game. And in that case, realistically, no matter how good a lock setup you have, they will get through it. And in that case, if you want to be really secure, one option is to have 2 sold secure gold locks on your bike. Purely that means it will take almost twice as long to cut through them with an angle grinder. So with this, if we go through here, so this bike is now pretty secure. We've got 2 sold secure gold locks on there, and we have a pretty sturdy cable protecting the saddle and the seat post. The sad truth is that given enough time and the right tools, thieves will get through any amount of locks if they really want a bike. In that case, it's worth remembering what the police call the 3 R's. Record, register, and report. Record meaning taking down key details about your bike's model and the components. Register, registering at the website like bikeregister.com, and reporting when it's stolen. If you do those 3 things, there's a really good chance your bike will be returned to you if it is ever recovered. And it's worth remembering that in the UK, hundreds or thousands of bikes are recovered and unable to be returned to their owners at any given time. We hope this video has been useful to you. If you've liked what you've seen, please subscribe to our channel and check out more from Cyclist Magazine.